Coming up on this episode of the Struggling Mind podcast. Question: what's it like for you being a man in today's world?
Oh, what a great question. I mean, I love it. I love being a man. That word means so much to me. It means everything. It's what I work so hard to be. And I love waking up every day with my lovely flat chest, seeing my Adam's apple, hearing my voice when I go on calls early in the morning, and just knowing this aligns with how I feel inside. But I do think the role of the man is changing so much now. And it was changing when I was presenting female, and I witnessed that.
Before we go any further, can you do me a favour and just show some love for the podcast and hit the subscribe button? Doesn't matter what platform you're listening to the podcast on, because it will just help to share these incredible stories from these amazing people. Thank you so much. Right, back to the episode. Tell me about Tate.
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Dude, it's entirely up to you. We haven't got to cover everything in this because we'll obviously meet up more anyway and have catch
Yeah.
up some coffees, because I like to think that we're mates.
Yeah. Same.
So you can start wherever you want, mate. I have no preference.
Well, Tate is a working class Essex boy who happens to be trans, who was assigned female at birth and transitioned later at the age of 20. I realized I was trans when I was 16, but up until that point, my childhood was very busy with lots of troubles, which I won't delve into, and school, most importantly, and just wanting to be a good student, and actually wanting to be a pretty girl as well, which I think contributed to me realizing so late, although I don't think 16 is that late, but for me it was, and compared to other trans people who might realize from the age of 2. But yeah, that's where the journey of Tate really began at the age of 20. I feel like I was just existing up until that point. I never said I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that. I was never connected to my body. And obviously puberty impacts that. But once I got out of that into my early teens, out of secondary school and into college and new friends and new settings, really coming into my own, that's when I started to really take shape. It's really interesting because I came out at 16, then went back into the closet, came out again at 19, and then decided to medically transition at 20. So those were my really formative years, 16, 17, 18, where I realized so much about myself, like even just that I love movies and old Hollywood and experimenting with different clothes and haircuts and hair dye, new friendship groups, starting to move out of my little village and explore other places in Essex and London and begin to work. And then that got me to just turning 20. April 2019 is when I started medically transitioning, taking testosterone. And then from there, it's actually just been a lot of personal growth because I recently celebrated 5 years since I began transitioning, which is a really, really big milestone. Thank you so much. But the interesting thing is, when I started transitioning, I was already thinking about that 5, 6 year mark when the second puberty is supposed to end, as they tell you. Um, and I thought, I wonder what I'll look like. Will I be big? Will I be big? Will I have a beard? Will I have tattoos? What will I sound like? How will people react to me? Will people still misgender me? And I got to about 3 years, and the aesthetic changes really plateaued, and my voice found its resonance, and it was like, oh, actually, I really like the way that I look right now, and I've got 2 years left of growing up, physically. And I thought, I'm in no rush. And now I've just celebrated 5 years. I've been reflecting a lot about, actually, I'm still transitioning. This isn't the end at all. And I made an Instagram post about it recently because I want other trans people to see that as well. because I think they might actually have the same idea about what they're going to look like at the end of those 5 years. But really, I am still growing up. I mean, physically, I've got a lot more growing up to do. I look about 14 and I'm 25. And then
I have to say, you do, you
I
do.
look so young. And then personal growth as well. This is what the transition has been about for me. So Tate has gone from female to male, from working class to working professional, and from legal secretary, which is what I spent most of my career doing, to now business founder. So actually, everything's running parallel, and it's not just been one transition, it's been probably three or four at once.
Yeah, there are quite multiple transitions going on in your life. So how do you so for you, right? There's so many different things going on, only not only in the background, but mentally and physically as well, and you're of an age where you're 16. We're all trying to navigate shit at 16. Right? We're trying to work out who we are, where we fit, what we like, what we don't like, and for you to have a very, very, very strong idea of the fact that, you don't belong in this, that you belong now. How do you navigate that mentally, especially in the environment that we were brought up in?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't do a very good job navigating it because I was only 16.
Mm.
The realization was far bigger than what I could have imagined. I mean, what I had to really sit down and think everything I know about my identity and what I've been taught and what I've been fed. Oh, it's just puberty. Oh, you want to get the attention of boys. Oh, you want to roll your skirt up so you look pretty. It was like I've just been floating through puberty. I've just been trying to get by. And it was like 16 stumbling across a YouTube video of a trans guy speaking about his transition that made me go, oh, okay, I think this is it. But it was a really difficult time for me because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to start. I mean, the thing is, I obviously am trans, but I don't know. I'm not an expert, funny enough, on all of the other stuff that comes with being trans. I had to learn different terminology. So I had to find the language that suited me. And then I had to learn the NHS route of going to a gender identity clinic, all the admin I have to do as a trans person to change my name via deed poll, get my gender marker updated on my passport. And at that same time, my family chose not to support me in this big realization that I had. And then they went as far as to impose stereotypes on me and to belittle me and go, well, you can't be a boy because you're a lesbian, look at you. Or but you never played football. So how can you possibly be a boy? And I was so young and trying to deal with all of this information overload. So obviously I didn't have the power to stand up for myself and go, no, 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 because I was imposing those stereotypes on myself. So I was trying to navigate, first of all, the realization, but also trying to look to role models. you know, there was no trans men visible in the UK apart from two YouTubers. The rest were American. And I might have found, Hilary Swank's starring role as a trans guy in Boys Don't Cry in 1999, but the rest of media and film representation was trans women. And for the most part, it was very, very negative, especially in early 2000s when I was growing up. Nadia and Big Brother, Channel 4 have just released a documentary about Miriam,
Watched that
date
last night.
show. Yeah, yeah. It was all sensationalizing. So I didn't have anyone to look to that looked like me and felt like my story as well. Because every time I went to go and look on more YouTube videos or do BuzzFeed quizzes, all of these people said I knew from the age of 2. Oh, I had a go at my mummy and daddy for making me wear a dress to church. I didn't do any of that. So I then started doubting myself and I went, okay, maybe I'm actually not trans. So that's what made me go back into the closet. Can you believe that? I actually went, no, I'm probably not. And my family are not. helping matters as well. And I actually couldn't see a way out because I was in college, had no part-time job. I couldn't even afford to buy a men's t-shirt, right? I looked very androgynous when I was trying to socially transition, so appear male. And I stayed in that closet for 2 years, but it was actually those 2 years that were really important for me because I knew deep down that there was something different. I thought if it's not gender dysphoria, maybe it's something else. Maybe I'm androgynous, but it was going out into the world, working as a legal secretary, having relationships, socializing, living life to the fullest as a woman, which made me go, yeah, I'm definitely not. And I'm so lucky I had that realization at 19
Mm.
because I then started taking steps to physically align that at the age of 20. And now I've got the rest of my life to live as the person I was meant to be, which I think is great.
I think it's fucking amazing.
Thank
Um,
you.
Mate, I think a lot of the things you just said there, they really do resonate.
Hmm.
The not understanding. I didn't come out till I was 22.
Oh,
That's because being gay was never on my radar. Never on my radar. Right. I grew
it
up in,
never crossed your
no,
mind.
no, 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 no. I grew up, so I was born in 75, and I'm mixed race.
Mhm.
So obviously there was already that kind of shame there anyway. And obviously there was no people that were older than me. I didn't know any people that looked like me that were older that I could use as role models, in that sense. You know what I mean? Even the male role models that I had, I never really kind of connected with them because I knew they weren't going to stick around long and they had nothing in common. You know, I'm a big lad, you know what I mean? Like loads of stuff and there was nothing or anybody that I could go, I look like him, you know, any of that sort of stuff. So when I did eventually come out, I only knew what I saw in society and on TV. So it was all about HIV, it was all about AIDS, it was all about gay people were dirty, they pass on diseases and that sort of stuff. And I was like, I don't want to be part of that. And plus, gay men that I saw on TV didn't act like me, didn't look like me, didn't talk like me, didn't dress like me. And so I was just kind of like, well, maybe this is not the right feeling I'm feeling. Maybe I'm just not right inside. Do you know what I mean? So when I did eventually come out, you're right in what you said. You have to almost divorce a life that you've used to protect you and that's becoming your identity to then work out where you fit in that new world,
Yeah,
which is again you're navigating shit. And
the
I ain't being
mindfuck.
f-
Yeah,
I ain't being funny. Going to gay clubs and stuff like that, mate. There's a lot of touchy feely stuff, and like people don't have any respect. They just think because you're in there, you're going for it. Man and blokes that I've scurfed up and gone, fucking do that to me again and
yeah,
see what happens. And it's mad because I wanted to be accepted into that world, but there was nobody accepting me. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, you're new, you're fresh. And it's kind of like, come on, man. Like, surely you should be kind of showing us the ropes here. Listen, let me just caveat that it's not every single person, right? But predominantly, I got a lot of that. And so I just retreated back in again. I was just kind of like, I can't, I want to discover this part of me, but maybe I'm going to the wrong places, but it always seemed to be about sex. And
yeah.
I'm a prude. Like, I'm a massive prude. So I didn't know what I liked, what I was into, any of that sort of stuff. So I was looking for that community to nurture me, but I didn't feel like I was being nurtured. So again, I kind of retreated back. And then the first person that I got into a relationship with made it worse. You know
Oh,
what I mean? Like made it worse. It was a really, really toxic relationship. And it was really, I was gaslit for predominantly most of that time I was with him. I lost my flat, he left me in debt, you know, I had to repair relationships with my friends and family, and I still didn't know who the fuck I was. I still didn't know what I was into. Do you know what I mean? So I retreated even further into that because I'm kind of like, I don't want to be part of that world. I'd rather be unhappy and miserable pretending to conform than I would be lost and gobbled up in a world where I don't feel like I fit or I'm accepted. So you're in limbo. That's
mm,
how I felt. I was in limbo. And again, you know, society was still telling me that I wasn't going to be accepted. I couldn't go to certain countries. I couldn't do certain things. And, you know, I couldn't present in certain ways. And I believe that, you know, and to the point that you get to in your life where, you know, I'm married now, 10 years, 14-year relationship, and I'm slowly dropping my barriers for him. Do you know what
mm,
I mean? Like, because of the fact that I have to trust this man because he's still here. He's still loving me in the way that I want to be loved. It's just I don't know how to accept it. and I didn't know how to accept it because society kind of it dents you and it taints you in a way, you know what I mean, in that sense. And so for me now, I'm proud to be gay. I'm proud to be somebody's husband. I'm proud that my husband is my husband, you know, all that sort of stuff. I don't bang the drum because I don't need to, but I don't hide who I am either. But I've had to learn to nurture me,
Yeah.
just like you.
Yeah, that's definitely what I had to do. And over the last 5 years, I've had to do that even more so. It's not all about the transition. I'm not living my life for other people. One big way that I did that was by making another agreement with myself, which was, okay, I'm going to go for this, but I'm not going to document it on social media because a lot of trans guys did that. So that was the only representation I had on Tumblr, Instagram, YouTube. They would document their transition, they would bless them, document every vulnerable part of their journey, including their chest surgery, doctor's appointments, their voice dropping every month, and well, the voice updates. I recorded them. I didn't post them anywhere, and then I think actually that acts as a good metaphor. I forgot to do them after a year because I was just getting on with my life. You know, I wasn't busy being trans. I was busy just working and trying to start my career and, get myself a nice place and all the other stuff that you need to navigate when you're 20, 21. I just happened to be going through a late puberty, really. So I've been doing much better work nurturing myself, I would say, in the last couple of years as well, because it's been about, okay, how do I now mold into a man that I want to be? Because I've got the physical stuff down. Because I'm really happy with how I look now, Lee. Because in the beginning, I did think I need to get a tattoo that looks like this. I want a beard. For a while, I was so annoyed at myself for not growing any hair. And it was like, take a chill pill, mate. You're going through second puberty. Of course, you're not going to get a beard because you're what a 14-year-old boy goes through at the age of 25, or well, even earlier than that, 23, 24. Um, and I had to be like, I'm actually okay with what I look like, what I sound like, and all the rest will just fall into place. And I think I'm so lucky that I've been able to transition from the corporate world into self-employed and now set up my business because it's like this is what my focus is now.
Mm.
It's not just transition, so it's like old news to me now, especially the coming out story, because it's like it was, when I think about it in the grand scheme of things, it was such a small part of my story, and it just doesn't need to be told every single day. So that's the biggest thing I'm doing to nurture myself at the moment. Going, here's my boundaries. I'm not going to speak about this anymore. I'm not going to rehash any traumas or talk about anything too personal because people don't deserve to hear it. And actually, I've got bigger fish to fry. I'm speaking about gender equality, male privilege, toxic masculinity, men's mental health. This is what I want to do now, rather than just talking about how hard transitioning is, which it hasn't been for me at all.
I'm glad you said that, right? Because, you know, there's a couple of things I want to talk to in regards to men's mental health and that kind of privilege as well. Again, watching your stuff, I've got a different insight into stuff and I've got a different understanding. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about learning and understanding and being open to have your opinion changed if what somebody's saying to you warrants that change. But you have to be open to listen to that information. Um, Male privilege.
Yeah.
You've been both sides of the fence, man. So you understand what it's like to be, you know, to see that kind of privilege, but also to be part of that kind of privilege. Now, I didn't know what that was at first, right? So I had to remember, I had to think about it and think, well, what's male privilege? You know, I don't, because I don't know what it's like to understand from a different perspective. But when I started to dig a little bit, and I was like, okay, I kind of get that, and I kind of see that. So for you, if you was going to kind of give me a couple of paragraphs, actually, no, that's a wrong way to put that. Give me your definition of male privilege.
Mine would be the privilege that comes with just simply looking like a man. And there are some butch people who might identify as men who experience male privilege because they're perceived as men, and it's the the real grace and advantages that men get as opposed to women and people of all genders. And the way it's played out for me is respect. People listen to me now. People ask me for my opinion because I have this lovely, deep, and authoritative voice now. I always look the same. I just have a better jawline now. And people are like, once they hear this voice, it's like, oh, we need to talk to him. He's our leader. Whereas when I had a, high-pitched Essex voice, it was like, oh, dumb, we don't care what she says, just another Essex legal secretary. But I think the biggest example for me is being able to, well, it's safety. So being able to walk home late at night and not experience harassment and catcalling. And Lee, obviously, we spoke about this when we first met, how you've got into the habit of falling a couple of paces behind because you've had to be aware that actually you're quite tall, you're mixed race. There are certain perceptions and prejudices that people may have, and they may look at you walking behind them. You may be walking slowly, and they might be intimidated by that. Now, that has happened to me, and I'm 5'3". I'm very tiny. I don't look intimidating at all. And I was very naive to think those would be reasons why women shouldn't be afraid of me. But I had to think when I saw women kept turning their head and looking at me in fear when I was walking behind them, I had to go, remember what it was like when you were in that position. Just the simple fact that a man was walking behind you was scary enough. You'd put your keys in your knuckles, you'd go on the phone and pretend to be on the phone to your boyfriend. You would cross the road, or you would take another route home. You would power walk away from them. You would be looking behind you all the time in fear, like these women were with me. So, what I've done now is recognize that and leverage that privilege by walking a couple of paces behind or crossing the road in advance. That's just what I do now. I know a lot of people may give them a reassuring smile, but I feel like that's quite counterproductive. So because I feel like if that was me in that position and a man did a smile, it would that wouldn't put me at ease. So I don't do that. So I've got into the habit of crossing the road and also calling other people out on it as well. So, like when I used to work in law firms, they used to get female legal secretaries to run errands at night sometimes, or there was an example where a trainee solicitor had to go down to company's house in Cardiff and stay the night, and someone said, but don't you realize she's not going to be able to go out? She's going to be alone. She might not feel safe delivering that package at night. So it's been really interesting to see how these conversations are being, had now, especially with the Mayor of London campaigns, and UN Women UK have recently just started one as well. And I'm so proud to be part of this and speaking about this in my different speaking engagements, especially with business and these big corporations, because I don't think men realize that they do have these privileges. When you do walk into a room, you command respect because you're a man. When I was presenting female, when I entered a room, I was judged on my attractiveness, and then people would make an assessment and then base how they would converse with me on that scale. I don't get that anymore because I'm a man.
Okay, so I do you know what, I get every single bit of that, and I just want to throw this into the works because,
Yeah,
again, going back to me being, tall and that kind of thing, that unconscious bias that we have, every single one of us have. We're judging first 3.5, 4 seconds when we first see somebody. We have this ability to look at somebody and recognize things in them from our past,
yeah,
right? And by what society pushes into us and advertises to us. Do you know what I mean? And for a long, long time, whenever I used to go somewhere, I was very conscious of people's um, impressions of me, and then I would take that responsibility to then change their mind. That wasn't my responsibility.
Right.
but I did it to be accepted. And now I don't care, like, because I know that people will judge, but people don't know my character, and they don't know my integrity, and they don't know me. So I give them the opportunity to get to know me. If they
Mm,
don't take the opportunity to get to know me, then that tells me a lot about them and their character and their integrity, because they
mm,
are just basing what they think they know on that first impression, and they're not allowing themselves to open their mind and go, actually, this dude's all right. You know what I mean? Maybe years ago on the phone, when you phone somebody, you never met them, and you go meet them and go, I wasn't expecting you. It's like, who was you
yeah,
expecting then? And they're like,
that happened with me.
I don't know. And it's like, you know what they was what they weren't expecting, but they're still trying to come to terms with what's standing in front of them.
Mm,
I don't do that anymore. It's not my
yeah,
responsibility to change someone's mind. Do you know what I mean? It really isn't.
so,
So for you, being in a place where you can actually explain what it's like to feel, you know, that part of it, and also to be part now of this part of the process of being aware of, how we come across to people. Um, for you to explain that, especially at, corporate level, is
mm,
really, really important, because you're able to break it down and nobody can go, well, actually, it's like, no, no, let me tell you from my experience what it's like.
exactly. I'm so privileged to have that experience. And when I started speaking, on the side of my 9 to 5 legal secretary job, I knew I wasn't going to just speak about coming out and transitioning. Because when I started speaking, I was already 8, 10 months into my transition, my medical transition, and I was already starting to feel these effects of male privilege. That example happened coming home late at night from my legal secretary job, and the summer previously I had been in the position of those women and, experienced catcalls in taxis and on the tube for showing a bit of thigh. So I'm so blessed to be able to go and speak to people about this and break it down. And you touched on a really important point there. No one can defy it as well because I've lived it. And I think that's what people love. And that's why people love to hear me speaking about this and keep asking time and time again, talk to us about male privilege, those differences in treatment, even the language. People have gone from calling me love, hun, darling to sir, lad, mate. I mean, the difference is just stark.
That sounds more accepting. When you call somebody mate, all right, mate, how you doing? All right, pal. That's more of a kind of, I find that more of an accepting kind of thing, that you're part of, you're part of that society. But
Yeah.
for a woman, if a man says, all right, babe, I find it doesn't have the same
There's
effect. It's got a
more
different
respect.
connotation.
It's got different connotations. Sir, lad, mate, we know that that's respect. That's you're another man. I see you and I want to be your mate. Okay, you're one of me. Babe, love, darling. It's patronizing. And it comes with a connotation of, okay, I find you a bit attractive, or I want to get to know you in that way. And I don't see you as a friend. I don't see you as mate. It doesn't mean to say that we have to go as far as to call them madam to match the same energy we give with calling men sir. But I just found it really, really interesting how people would say those things straight away when meeting me, as opposed to "all right, love." It's just so demeaning. I mean, don't think any woman likes to be called that.
No, I will. Again, right. So this is kind of where my mind goes with that sort of stuff, and
Yeah,
the way that I was brought up. When we was brought up in around pubs, so love and that sort of stuff was a word that's kind of, you would identify with necessarily a barmaid,
Mhm.
in that sense, and it's almost like an acceptable, because it's universal in a way. You think you got 50 people in a pub, they come from different walks of life, different cultures, different upbringings, and all that sort of stuff, and they see things, but there is a universal language. Do you understand what I mean? And
Yeah,
so the words like love and babe and stuff like that, they are terms of endearment between those two people, but yet universally, it's still accepted as a way of identifying somebody.
yeah,
But then you put that layer on it, that then it can be quite patronizing to some people, because we're not all the same. But yet
yeah.
we treat women the same, because, well, they've accepted it and the people in my life have accepted it. So therefore it's an acceptable terminology. And some people are like, mm-mm. I don't like that. And it's
Mm.
then you're kind of like, well, what's your problem? It's like, no, it's not a problem. I'm just explaining to you that I don't like that terminology that you use towards me. Change it. And then it's like, no one's ever challenged that before. Like, no one's ever
No.
gone, you can't use that word. I don't like that. It's kind of like, well, these people do. It's like, yeah, but I'm not those people. And do you find that through, as you're starting to grow, that you're separating yourself or that from what you feel we need to accept to actually, this is not acceptable for me?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm really trying to take that all in because that really resonates with me, particularly coming from Essex, because I have been called into environments where people have said, like, listen, we've got someone calling this trans woman mate all the time, and she's taking that as a sign of disrespect. She's not being read as a woman. And these people who have called her mate are from similar backgrounds to me, that pub environment, the working at Essex or, East London. So you almost have to unlearn everything. And I know that that's really difficult for people. And I have a lot of compassion. One key example for me is guys. Now, that's always been used as a gender neutral term even before we understood what gender neutral was a society. But my understanding is that non binary people and gender non conforming people don't like that because guy is male, even though when people have used guys, it's always been in a neutral way to address a team or a group of people. So, as an activist, as a consultant, as an educator, a speaker, I have to separate my own views from those of my community. And obviously, I am allowed to have my own views and challenge people, but I am in a position where I have a platform and what I say goes. A lot of people do look to me as an authoritative figure in the community. That comes with its own pressure, but I manage that well. So I then have to go, okay, so what I can do is I can take what they're saying, right? Because what they say is valid. They don't like guys. But what I'm going to do is give that explanation like I've just given to you, Lee. Really resonate with people. I get where you're coming from because remember, I'm trans, but I don't know all the language.
Mm.
I'm not non-binary, so I don't know what it feels like to hear that language and not like it. So this is how we can adapt it and use it and unlearn. You have to have a lot of compassion when you're in my job. I don't do it for promo, for fame. I do it for the good of the community and for trans visibility. Whatever platform I have, that's come as a result of me doing good work and people giving me that platform and wanting to hear from me. But what I've done is I've really flipped it on its head and used any educational opportunity that I have to really tap into what that corporate needs, what that individual needs, what that LGBT plus network needs to convey. Because I think it's so important to have, and as you'll know, these one-on-one conversations rather than just going, don't say this and leave it at that. Because how are people supposed to learn from that?
Mm. Yeah, that's so true. I said that to the beginning, didn't I? Like, I don't know everything. But the
No.
only way that I find out or learn is by asking. And I'd rather go to the source, right, direct somebody and say, well, tell me a little bit about your world. Help me understand the way that you facilitate it and tell me the way that you navigate it, rather than just reading something and going, oh, out there. Because we're all individual. Right? I learned that. That was one of the important things I learned when I got into the work that I do, is that every single one of us are individual. We just have similar experiences. But I can never know what it felt like for you. Never. You can tell me, but I can empathize with you, but I never know what it felt like for you when that happened. And the same thing for me. But I can empathize with the experience and the similarities because that's where that conversation starts, don't it? It's like, oh, it was like that for me, or no, actually, I felt like this. It's like, did you? It's like, yeah. It's like, oh, I didn't really feel like that. Like when you said to me, like, you don't know everything about, you know, um, trans and stuff like that, but you know what you know, and you share that with everybody else, and that's how we educate because all we're doing is passing on knowledge. That's all we're doing. You know what I mean? I'm passing on something about me that I want to help you learn and understand, and you're going to tell me something in a way that you react or respond to it. you know? So I know then I need to go down this way to explore a bit more, to add a bit of context for you, because I know you got it here in that sense. And, I do that a lot with the coaching, every person that I coach is different. But the one thing is like knowing where they want to get to. Like you tell me where you want to be in 12 months' time, and then we'll work on that backwards. In a kind of, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, where do you want to be in 12 months? Like, you don't want to be where you are, do you? It's like, no, it's like, okay, so what does it look like? And then you're getting them to really start to think about them. But they will always go, well, my wife would like this, or my husband would like. So, no, no, no. What do you want? Where do you want to be? And you have to keep bringing it back, because people are not used to thinking about themselves because they think it's selfish.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what stopped me from transitioning at 16, because I had to think about my parents and them losing their little girl, and my siblings being confused as to, oh, but we thought you was a lesbian. And I never came out as one, by the way. It was just a stereotype that was imposed on me. But that speaks to them mistaking that masculine energy for the only language they had. So I can empathize with that. But I really, really had to get very quick and very good at, okay, you are transitioning for you. You are doing this for you and not for others. Okay. And that is why I'm so glad I didn't transition on social media. I didn't make it public. Um, and instead, I've shared what I want when I want with corporates, and I've been fortunate to turn it into a career. And I'm very, very good with my boundaries as well. So if I turn up to a lunch and learn that I've got booked in one day, there will be times where I go, I'm not comfortable speaking about this today. I don't have the mental capacity. There have been too many negative news stories, or actually, I'm dealing with this bad news which has been leaked to the press concerning my community. So I'm just going to gut this bit out of the session. And 9 times out of 10, people will respond warmly, because they understand that I'm revealing something so personal about myself. And I'm still learning. I'm still going on a journey. I'm going to be transitioning for the rest of my life. I mean, I am so excited by what's to come. I've just celebrated 5 years. What's going to happen in the next five? What am I going to look like? I'm actually going to grow old as a man. Like, the thought of it is just so exciting to me. Like, me being a grandpa, me being old, me being grey, and it fills me with so much joy.
When you get old, you're sitting there when you're walking out like that. It's like, grandpa's like, shut up. Grandpa,
Yeah,
shut up.
yeah, but I'll be loving it. I'll be going, this is everything I've wanted. I'll be the happiest old person ever. I'll be like, Adrian, love it, bring it on.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't need like that Botox and fillers. Not for me. Look at me. You know what I mean? I love that.
Don't need it.
Well, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because with the kind of the gay thing as well. It's like when you're saying about coming out, there is that all the time you meet somebody. I don't. When I said to you, and I don't do it as much now. I just talk about Mark as a second person, and people go, "Who's Mark?" Oh, by the way, he's my husband. And oh, right, oh. Because it's a leading question like that. Then it takes it away from you, and I don't want to be. Oh, this is Lee. This is like he's gay. That pisses me off, and I don't. So I've kind of got rid of that now, because I don't want people just to know me as being gay, or just to know me for living in France, or just for me to talk about mental health and being a coach. There's a lot more to me than that. That's just what I do for a living, right? And my sexuality and my gender and all that is really nobody else's business. And I battled really hard with that before I came out, because like you, I was more concerned about my family, my sisters, my friends, how they were going to feel. And that's what I'd done up until the point of coming out anyway. It was always about them. It was never about me. And so when I didn't want it to be about being gay. I didn't want it to be about that, because I was trying to work it out for myself. And so, and what it's like, you get inundated with people. Well, what's it like? Did you do this? And also so and so. And it's that. It's kind of like, dude, I'm trying to work it out. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
we have no gay friends.
yeah,
So I am the only person now that is gay within our kind of circle of friends. And all of a sudden they're asking me for information I don't have.
no. And you're
And
not there
then,
to give a training session. You just
no.
reference that you have a husband.
Yeah. It's like, do you? It's like, yeah, my husband's gay. Does he know? He's like, yes, he does.
Yeah, I think he does.
But I like that. I like the person that I've created, because it's somebody that I am
happy with, and it's somebody that I can grow with, and it's somebody that I understand, and it's somebody that I get. I still battle a lot internally with who I think I should be and what I want to become. And I just think that's something that happens all the time because you're letting go of something in order to facilitate something new. And sometimes we feel we need to keep hold of everything and we don't. And so that's the battle that I have, is kind of like, if I let go of this, is that going to fall down? And it's like, well, I don't know until I try. And that creates self-belief. That starts to create that confidence in me. It's like, come on, man, you've done this. Try this. Do this. Meeting people. I would never randomly go and meet people. Never. Never do that because I didn't know what they knew about me and I didn't know how they were going to treat me. So it's easy to protect myself and not. But, you know, the last 8 years, the world is such an accessible big place. And I've met so many incredible people because I've opened myself up. Not to be vulnerable, but to learn and to understand, you know, because not everybody's like me. And I can't make everybody like me. And I can't think that everybody thinks like me.
Mm.
So I have to learn that I have to allow myself to be taught and nurtured because there's so many incredible fucking people out there that I'm going to learn from. So I need to kind of connect with them, you know what I mean? And that's why it was important for me to understand that I'm not a finished article. You know, I've got so much to learn and to pass on. I never thought I'd live to I was 30, right? And I never thought I'd live to I was 40. I nearly wasn't here at 41. I have a small period left on this world, right? Less than I've actually lived. And I intend to make sure that everything that I do is something that I'm going to learn from. You know, it's really important for me. I can't unlearn what I know, but what I can do is make room to learn more, you know, in that sense. And that's why it was important for me to work out who Lee is.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I've been doing. I think that's such a lovely point for us to conclude on because I'm still a work in progress too. I'm still growing up. I'm still maturing. I'm still changing physically and metaphorically as well, you know, and I'm really looking forward to turning 30 and 40 as a man because I never thought I would even get to 18, you know, let alone 25. And celebrating that 25th birthday was a really lovely moment for me because I felt like such an adult, but I also felt like, oh, I'm an adult, but like a male one now. Because obviously, when I started transitioning, it was 20, and then I turned 21 the first year. And obviously, cisgender men, they say, you know, their puberty stops around 21. And it was like, oh, mine is only just beginning. So once I reached 25, it was like, oh, I'm so proud. I feel like an adult. I've done so much in these last 5 years, both in my transition and my career. And now I get to live the rest of my life, you know, as my full and authentic self, which is just what everybody wants, if you're trans or not.
Yeah, everybody does. Let me ask you, what's it like for you being a man in today's world?
Oh, what a great question. I mean, I love it. I love being a man. That word means so much to me. It means everything. It's what I work so hard to be. And I love waking up every day with my lovely flat chest, seeing my Adam's apple, hearing my voice when I go on calls early in the morning, and just knowing this aligns with how I feel inside. But I do think the role of the man is changing so much now, and it was changing when I was presenting female, and I witnessed that, and now it's evolved even more. But I love the way the where it's going, right? And I love that men are being more vocal and open and more in tune with their feelings, which is why I'm so proud to be speaking about men's mental health and actually speaking up on their behalf because I have that um dual experience. So I'm still learning. I think I've got a good idea of the basics in that I want to carry myself like a gentleman. I want to treat people with kindness and compassion. But all the other stuff, the toxic masculinity, the stereotypes that I have to navigate as I grow older, you know, as I leave that safety net of transitioning, you
Mm.
know, it's like, okay, I'm still learning now. But for me, being a man means everything to me. I mean, just that word fills me with so much joy.
I love it. Mate, I've got one more before we go. It's really important because we was talking about toxic masculinity, but there's also positive masculinity. And you said about, identifying in regards to tattoos and stuff like that. That's how I used to see men, because that's what I thought a masculine man was. That they were bigger, they were kind of like, they had beards, they had hairy chests. That's kind of what I'm attracted to, because that's what society told me that a man was. I look nothing like that. So I always felt that I was never gonna be a man or look like a man, because that was my interpretation, because society fed that to me, that we have to be butch and we have to be, and there was a certain way, wear certain clothes, and I was kind of like, I don't fit that mold. Like physically, I don't look like that, but that's kind of what I'm attracted to now. And I think that was because of the way that society pushed it. But that positivity, what we thought was a positive masculinity, actually done a lot more damage,
Yeah,
because you were trying to emulate, achieve, become what we thought that men were to be accepted. And we're not all like that, and it took me a long time to love me for the way that I looked and for what I could do to my body, i.e., go to the gym, all that sort of stuff, what I put in, how I think. I ignored all of that because I didn't look like this version of myself in my head. And that was because of the fact of what I saw around me. And I started to make that part of my narrative. So that's also something that I'm very conscious of, is the fact that we have to find a way to like who we are, and to accept us and understand how our bodies work, and how we can, bend and flex to a degree, but there are certain things that we cannot achieve regardless, because our bodies are just not made like that.
yeah.
And that was really hard for me. Like, that was really hard for me, because I was kind of like, I can't be this. And now I've realized that actually, no, I can't, but I can still love that in somebody else. And that was how I had to really reframe that, because I was always beating myself up and being disappointed because I wasn't this hairy chested, big armed, big calved, beard, what I perceived in my head. And then I kind of flipped it and just thought, all right, I'll just marry someone that looks like that instead then. But do you see, like, that positive side of it isn't necessarily positive, because we don't all see the same thing.
No, and I think, take it from a trans man, masculinity is, in my opinion, performative. It's social norms, it's gender norms. Being a man, the idea of masculinity, that's you. That's what it means to you. Don't feed into stereotypes and social norms, right? I had those imposed on me. Well, you didn't play football. You know, I had issues around my height, being 5'3". I'm not going to look manly because I'm not 6 foot. I'm not going to look manly if I'm not muscly, if I don't get tattoos, if I don't grow facial hair. And you've only got to hold a mirror up to society and look at other men, see that not just the basic cliche, they all come in different shapes and sizes. We all have different ways of presenting ourselves, and you've only got to look to other men to realize that. And I think that will make you feel a lot better in yourself. And I think that's where the positive masculinity lies, looking at other people presenting themselves in different ways and living as their authentic selves. Because I had to learn that growing up into masculinity. I can only imagine what it's like for cisgender men who were blessed to be born as men and grown up that way. I had to go, okay, now you've got to stop with this height issue, because you're seeing men who are as tall as you or perhaps smaller. No, you're seeing a man that's got the same frame as you, or has the same colored hair, or has a different haircut. There is no right way for you to look. It's what feels right for you.
Mm.
And this goes for people who aren't trans. Each of us has a different way of expressing our gender. You don't have to be queer. You don't have to be LGBT in order to do so.
Mate, that is perfect. That is perfect, because I've learned now that I connect with people that I'm on the same vibe as, and it don't matter where you come from, it don't matter what you look like, it don't matter what your background is. If we're vibing, mate. You know what I mean? Because we've got things in common. And that's kind of how we met. You know, I started following you because you were sticking your head up above the parapet, and I respected that. Do you know what I mean? You was like, fuck it, you know, I'm going to do this because I know that I can make a difference. And I really, really respect that energy, because that's like, we're going to go out and fuck shit up, but we're going to do it in a way that we're going to change things, and we're going to, mate, we're given a voice. Like, even when I stand in front of people and I still shit myself, you know, and they come up and they go, thanks for that, man. That took courage and that was brave. And I was like, I never saw that. You know, I was just trying to get this out. And they were like, no, seriously, it really does. So when you keep getting that, you're thinking, actually, maybe I'm making a difference. Maybe this was what I was supposed to be doing. Maybe this was why my path was cut in that way, because I have a way to deliver past experiences in a way that people can actually resonate with it. And that's why, you know, it was important for me to understand. And so I appreciate you, mate. And as I said to you, Tate, I think you're fucking incredible for what you do. And I think you are going to go on and make some massive ripples. But thank you. Before you leave, 3 quick questions. This is what I ask all my guests. Okay. You're up for it? They're just quick little questions.
Right.
First question is, if you had to get rid of all your apps off of all your devices and only keep 3, what 3 apps would you keep?
YouTube, Camera, and Spotify.
Okay, that's cool. YouTube's the first one I've heard of that. All right, second question. If you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Invisibility, so I could spy on people's conversations and see what they're saying about me.
I love it, straight in there. I just want to know, I'm nosy. And the third and final question, mate, is what's your favourite sandwich?
Sandwich. Oh, well, I'm vegan, so the M&S, they call it, instead of the BLT, the VLT.
Really?
Very nice. It's a bit on the pricey side. I think it's £4, but it tastes really delicious. But to be honest with you, I'm not a sandwich person. I'm a grab and go kind of guy.
All right. Why is vegan food so expensive?
You tell me. I
I
went
mean,
vegan.
it's
vegan
food.
10 years ago, and it was dead cheap. I mean, because there was barely anything in the shops. But now, if you have a dietary, whether that's vegan, gluten-free, halal, they just add an extra cost onto it now. It's so unfair. So unfair.
Tate, dude, seriously, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to leave a review and subscribe.